You are listening to the Body Charge podcast, and I'm your host, Sandy Sanderson. Welcome to the Body Charge podcast. Today's topic is how a dyslexic brain can fit better into this world. Dyslexia can be stressful and alienating, with defeat after defeat crushing the emotions and self-confidence of a child. It can also be associated with ADHD and autism. The standard reading techniques for those children seem like squeezing a square peg into a round hole that doesn't fit, with the corners being cut off by stress as their full IQ capacity is bypassed and lost. But with the right techniques, the circle can be expanded to include the corners without losing the gifts. My special guest today is Dyslexia Professor Russell van Brocklen, who specialises in a structured literacy method catering for the way the dyslexic brain best operates. So welcome aboard, Russell.
Thanks for having me.
So this is our second podcast. It's kind of a part two because we didn't quite cover everything in the first one about dyslexia. We have a lot of neurodivergence happening today, more than ever before than I can remember in decades past. Or did we just, forget about this group of people and not recognize them? And, if they happen to be left-handed, we flog them into being right-handed. And, we tried to really squeeze and fit them into the box that society wanted at that time last century. But now we're sort of in our investigations and research becoming a little bit more flexible to accommodate this kind of neurodivergence, because we don't want to miss out on the beautiful talents and skills that would be available if that kind of brain were taught in the right way. So, can you describe the symptoms of stress that children with dyslexia may experience and how you recognize that?
Well, I want you to imagine a sport that you really stink at. For me, it's basketball. I'm horrible. What sport are you really bad at?
Football.
Okay, so I want you to imagine you're now expected to play football really well, and everybody around you is really good at it, and you got two left feet and you just absolutely are horrible. All right. And you're expected to do well. Well, you're a full-grown woman. Imagine when you were 8, how devastating that is. So essentially what's going on, just so everybody knows what the science is, this is the Overcoming Dyslexia by Dr. Sally Shaywitz from Yale. And that's dyslexia. The back part of the gen ed brain has this massive neural activity. The back part of the dyslectic has next to nothing. So you're trying to get us to operate where we got nothing. So what we need to do is we need to shift over completely and go to the overactive front part of the brain, which is about 2.5 times overactive. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And according to Yale, that's done with word analysis followed by articulation. Now, if I'm going to tell you exactly how to de-stress these kids precisely, and understand that once we get them to reading and writing at grade level or above and we send them back into school, there will be some stress. There always will be. But they'll be okay. If you try to put them back into typical classes before the intervention period is over, before we bring the reading and writing up to grade level or above, they're going to be maximum stressed out. So
because
the first...
Sorry to
So go ahead.
Children really don't want to be shamed either. They want to be part of the group and have friends, and they don't want to be criticized or made to feel less. They want to be included. And kids can be cruel at school. It's easy to make fun of someone who's a bit different, right?
Oh, incredibly. So the main thing that I need you to understand is it's not that schools are trying to be hard on the neurodiverse. It's just the back part of the brain is what they're worth teaching. Because if you take any gen ed kid with an IQ of 100 or over, and you tell them if they plan out their studying properly, so they really plan it out well, and then they work really hard, They're going to do well to extraordinarily well. That's it. That's what it is. But for a dyslexic, you could have them work 10 times harder and they'd still do horrible because there's nothing going on back here. So, how do we shift that? How do we de stress these kids? The first thing you're going to do during the intervention period, and I'm sorry, parents, the schools will not do this. This is on you. What you're going to do is you have to focus on the kid's speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability. Let me give you an example. I just want to let you know it. This example is Casey. I never saw this before, Casey. I will never see this again. Of the hundreds of teachers I've taught, they will never see this. This is a one-off edge case. Casey was 10 years old at the end of fifth grade, reading and writing like a second grader, think a 7-year-old. She turned 11 over the summertime. She was interested in Theodore Roosevelt, President Theodore Roosevelt, so I assigned her this insane book, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, all 900 pages. This is for 10th grade to first year college level, depending on who you ask. So this is like 15. She's reading like 7. This book won the Pulitzer. This is about as complicated as you're going to get for a biography. This is all Casey. She took a version of what I'm going to show you tonight, went up to her room, shut the door for for 3 hours a night for the next 6 months, most of the day during the summertime. At the end of that time, you could flip to any word in that book and she'd tell you the dictionary definition. She jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months, and I worked with her for 15 minutes a week. And that is not the point. The point is when I moved to a book she hated to see if it transferred over, she did that in 3 months. And I asked her how much did her motivation drop? And she said about 50% from what she loved to what she hated. Now think about that. Most kids will drop 75 to 90%. So if you're outside their area of extreme interest and ability, you are their speciality, the motivation is just not there. It will fail for that reason. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You see that a lot in children on the spectrum with autism. They're
Mhm.
brilliant, genius in a specific area of their interest, but fail dismally in other what neurotypical people think are like mundane. Um, and it's like a lopsided cart. You have 3 wheels working well and one wheel a little bit of a different size, and then it wobbles. But you've got the other parts of the brain functioning at optimal best and much higher than average. So how does your system compensate for this unevenness?
Well, we have to get them to grade level. And then I'll give you an example at the end, but the next step, this is critical. If you ask a neurodiverse person in their speciality, do they have ideas flying around their head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So what we need to do is force the dyslexic brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Let me put that into English. If you were to go into a typical American high school and ask a high school college-bound gen ed kid, what effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have on the American civil rights movement of the 1960s? They know exactly what to do. They love those instructions because it's big picture, eventually going down to details. They love that. But for the dyslexic or neurodiverse kid, it's like grabbing fog. There's nothing to grab onto. So what we have to do is we have to flip that script. We have to start off at a very specific point and then slowly go out. We would ask what personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech. Then we'd go to his biography, look up that time period, find the answer. That answer would give us a question, which would give us an answer, which would give us a question. That forced the dyslexic brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. I got this by talking to top neurodiverse professors who were at national research universities and attained the rank of full professor. They freaking loved going from the specific to the general. They didn't care some of them didn't even care what the subject matter was as long as they were taught that way.
They love the details.
Yes, but just understand, starting at a specific point, slowly going out. Question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. And then let's follow the science from Yale and use that part of the brain. That's word analysis followed by articulation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to actually most likely improve your ability to write an advanced body paragraph. Everything that I'm going to introduce to you now comes from a book called The Craft of Research, which came out from the University of Chicago in 1995 to teach PhD students to write their doctoral dissertations. It has sold over 1 million copies. Why am I going that advanced? Because this is what the professors demand that these kids can do in high school. So the best way I like to try to explain this, because remember, we have to start off at a specific point, is to use a universal theme to start off with word analysis, then we'll do articulation. So how I found the best way to communicate this is a movie review. So I'd like you to think about a movie that meets 3 criteria. 1, you know it extremely well. Number 2, you think it's one of the best of all time. Number 3, everybody's seen it. What's the name of that movie?
Um, oh, a movie I like.
Yes.
Oh, I just saw Michael on the weekend, the new Michael Jackson movie. I thought that was fun.
Okay. So Michael Jackson. Now, I'm going to ask you a very difficult, because remember, we're starting off at a specific point and then going out. So we're going to start off with a universal theme. I need you to condense that Michael Jackson movie into a one-word universal theme that best represents your thoughts on it, your original thoughts.
Um, well, actually, funnily enough, it reflects a lot about what we're talking about. He was a unique individual, unlike anyone else on the whole planet, absolutely brilliant at his specialty skill in
Mhm.
singing, dancing. But he found it hard to fit in with the rest of society and felt a lot of the time ostracized. So, he was someone who couldn't fit, but found extreme joy in doing his specialty thing. So I think
Right,
a good teacher that allows us to have a different perspective on people that don't fit.
right. But I need a one-word universal theme that
Good.
represents
I've
everything.
got the
One word.
buzzwords.
What's that?
Inspiring.
Inspiring. Okay. So here's the thing. For a dyslexic, if I were to go down to your local public school and have the teachers tell me their smartest dyslexic high school kid, they would probably tell you that one word universal theme in orders of magnitude faster than their teachers, because that's exactly what we're good at. And that starts to shock teachers when they're like, my kid can do, my dyslexics are better than me at some things. I said, yes, because now we're at 2.5 times the neural activity, and now you're playing in my sandbox. Now, the next thing I had to figure out is, I'm sorry, first of all, let me say how we would have done the movie review. We would have done how did the actors do with that universal theme of inspiration? How did the director do? How did the screenwriter do? Here's the problem. It's a broad brush. Great back in the 90s. We could have just blasted that out across a couple of major television stations, a couple major publications. But in the 2020s, we got to be ultra specific. So I didn't know how to do that. So then I went to the professors and I said, who's the best communicator in written English in English history? And they all came up with one name, Shakespeare. So I'm about to traumatize your audience just for a moment, because we're going back to high school English. Just for a moment. Here's a standard Shakespeare play. You'd have a hero. Hero wants to do something based on one or more universal themes. There would be and then there would be an ultimate villain whose combination of concepts, a character, and universal themes try to prevent the hero from accomplishing the goal. There would be conflict in Act One, go like crazy. Act Two, resolve in Act Three. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So what we have to do is simplify that and then apply word analysis followed by articulation. This is how we de-stress these kids. So then what we do is we'll take, and I'm just assuming that the kids have taken one of our earlier courses so they can write body paragraphs. So what we would do is we would say, let's take, for example, Michael Jackson's movie. We're going to take that script, and that's the kid's speciality. I would say, pick your hero and then write out 5 to 20 paragraphs on what that hero wants to do. Then for each sentence, you're going to pull out the most important word, and you're going to type out on a laptop, not an iPad, not an iPhone, and certainly not Android. You're going to type out the hero. I'm sorry. You're going to type out that most important word. Then you're going to go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary. And parents, you are watching this. There's no trust. You're watching this until you can trust them. They're going to pick out their definition. No copy and pasting. They have to type it out for all the most important words. Then they're going to pick the best one that they like the best. But now we run into the same problem you had with inspiration, broad brush. So we're going to go to the thesaurus. They're going to type in their word. We're going to go, you can go 5 synonyms, 10 synonyms, the whole level, multiple levels, most do 10. You're going to have the kid type out the word, the first synonym, and then go to the dictionary. And then they're going to type out the definition. Why am I having them do all this freaking typing? Because teaching the dyslexic how to read is about the hardest thing you can imagine. But if they go do it this way, remember, we're doing word analysis here, for part of the brain, 2.5 times overactive. They type it out 5, 10, 20 times, whatever, they will eventually know it. They'll eventually say, Mom, I know it. And mom or dad will look at it and go, okay, tell me what the definition is. And then they'll look it up. If it's essentially the same, they don't have to type it again. If it's not, keep going. The repetition is massive. You do that 6 to 18 months. Most of my kids are 12 to 18 months. They're going to develop a vocabulary of hundreds of evolved words. And then that's going to jump the reading level up like crazy. Then when they're in high school, I have them do this at 10, 11, 12. 5 years later, when they're taking their SATs or their ACTs, the verbal section is just a vocabulary test. They don't need to study it because they've already studied it 5 years before and they remember 70 to 80% of the definition. So what happens is then they pick the synonym that best represents what's in their head. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a lot closer. Then we can laser focus and pick out the ultimate villain. I start off with characters. I eventually move to concepts. And then we have the hero, universal theme, and villain. Put those together in a basic sentence. Do you see how that's an advanced form of word analysis?
Yeah, so just to summarize a little bit, you
Mhm.
pick a theme that they're going to like, that they're going to be motivated in looking into in a bit more detail. You start with the details and create connections and associations, word associations, and repeat, repeat, repeat to create new pathways in the brain,
Yes.
to create more connections. Eventually, the connections join together and form the bigger picture from the smaller detail. I think there's also a way for the brain to focus and to be calm, because when you're in the zen of something, when you focus, just to look at the other side of the coin, people with ADHD are having like a multitude of different ideas and meanings pop into their head at the same time, into a funnel, and the funnel's not big enough, and they don't know how to pick which idea to hold on to first, to let through the funnel, to express and to verbalize. So they find it very difficult to express themselves because they can't catch the ideas and put them in an ordered sense. And so they become hyperactive. Usually, if they go outside and run around a little bit, they can get rid of that excess energy and come back and focus. So all the time, it's helping them to come back to focus on the detail, which shuts out extraneous stimulus. It helps them to pick something and be confident and calm with that something, which is at the detail level. Then you provide a structure, the structure of a connection with another word, another association, bring back the meaning, and it's this back and forth to build. You're building a structure all the time in the brain. And eventually, I think with the repetition, it goes into the autonomic nervous system, and that's how they pick up speed when they're reading, because they've 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 built those neural pathways, a lot of which then can become automatic in the nervous system. Is that sort of a good summary?
Yes. But understand what we did here. I work with a lot of ADHD. I'm ADHD. Okay. So when you get an ADHD kid in their area of extreme interest and ability, number one, focusing is not a problem. The problem is they are too focused. All right. I don't have those issues because I'm working exactly in what they're interested in. But remember when you said about articulation? I just walked you through how we come up with a hero. We've identified the universal theme. We got it much more specific. Then we picked out the ultimate villain. They can then use that to discuss that from any point of view. For my more advanced students, I'll flip it around. I'll then look through the villain's eyes and go through the same thing. And then my kids can argue at the college level when they're in middle school. Drives the teachers crazy. But you mentioned articulation. How do we get them to articulate? This is much shorter. What we do is we ask them to come up with three really good reasons. And then for each reason, we're going to reduce that to a one word universal thing, just one simple universal thing. And we're going to use that to go into the script of Michael Jackson's movie. And we're going to look for a sentence that deals exactly with that universal theme at the beginning of the movie and one that deals with it exactly at the end. And we're going to put those two together. Those two quotes together are our data. Now, just remember, every body paragraph has two quotes. You cannot write what teachers call a BS paper if every paragraph has two quotes. They can't accuse the kid of using ChatGPT or artificial intelligence to write it for them because they can show them exactly how they came up with it. So now you have your two quotes. We then are going to take those two quotes, and from that, we're going to create our topic sentence. Now, have you ever noticed with your writing that connecting your topic sentence to your data, it doesn't flow very well?
Sometimes, yes, there's
Okay.
gaps need to be filled.
Right. And how the craft of research specifically tells you to fill that gap. And almost nobody outside of a PhD candidate knows what this is. It's called using a warrant. A warrant connects your topic sentence and your data by answering a how question and a why question. You're going to write that out as one or two sentences and then put that between, you have your topic sentence, your answer to how, your answer to why, then your two quotes.
With
And then it
logic.
flows well. Yes, and that flows real well. Now, when a professor sees that a student has used a warrant, they automatically think this is at the advanced writing level. It's really important to them. And now that you know about it, if you don't use it, you will be arrested. That's a joke.
That's good. I got that one.
Well, so what I just showed you there is when we're dealing with a student, we find out what their speciality is. We teach them from the specific to the general, and then we do word analysis followed by articulation. Now that stress that you're talking about disappears. Now I can tell you what happened with one of my kids. I'm writing a book on it called "If You Write, You Can Read." My part of it deals with read. I met his mom on December 27th of 2024. Reed was reading, he just tested by the state, reading at the 11th percentile, writing at the 4th percentile, 10-year-old. 8 months later, his mom worked with him for an hour and a half a week. Most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions. She was a homeschooling mom. Reed went up to the 64th percentile in reading, 65th in writing. Okay. Um, what's going on with him now? He's in a public school, getting generally A's and B's, and it's solved. She did it in under 9 months. Private schools in the United States at 75K a year take 4 to 5 years. This is how powerful it is once you actually teach the brain how it works. Now, did everything go nice and great when Reed went back to school? No. In math class, his teacher wanted him to write a lot, and he could, but he was slower than the other kids. So he tried to rebel. He was raised correctly. So I told his mom and his teacher to do this: cross your arms and just stand there like a statue and let him complain. And then he sees nothing's moving. Okay, I'll do it. And he tried to, push her. I only worked with what I liked. I don't want to do this other stuff. And he pushed back. Nothing was going to move. I'll do it. And they go do it. And it's a little awkward, but they can function just fine. And then as they go through their education and they eventually get into their major and then in grad school, I can tell you in grad school, it's freaking unfair to be dyslexic or ADHD. It is extremely unfair because that's the part of the brain that we're really good at using.
No, you give them actually confidence along the way, even though it may be difficult at the beginning to to do these steps and the repetition, once they experience the challenge and they've overcome the challenge and they have a sense of success, they can then be motivated to do more, right? You sort of open the door to doing more because it
Oh,
starts to
yes.
become fun. They've conquered the problem.
What I try to do, I'll give you an extreme example. I was dealing with a very bright 14-year-old in New York State. I said, "What do you want to do?" He's like, "I want to be an engineer." I was like, "Okay, you must be a killer at math and science." "Yeah, that's me. I'm good." I said, "Okay." So it was not a fit. So there's the thing in New York State where you could go to your local state supported community college. It's junior college. And the first 2 years of engineering science is the same for everybody. So I said, "Okay, what do you say we send your son there?" And I said, "Okay, for the first semester, you're going to take two classes of whatever you want. I don't care what it is. I don't care what your school says." So he did that. And he carried two A's. I said, "Now that you've made the transition, now we're going to start moving you two classes a semester towards your goal. And you're going to spend lots of time on that." So he did that. Well, number one, now he has a lot more free time than his friends. And number two, when he actually started it, instead of doing 21 credits and getting killed, all the classes he didn't want to take, they're all done. He's already taken some of the he's ahead. So while his friends were killing themselves doing 21 credit hours, he was doing 12, which is the optimum for a dyslexic. And he said it was just so much better because he said, "Hey, my teachers don't care if I show up." So he shows up. He said it was so much different, and it just worked for him.
Took the pressure
So
off. Yep.
yeah, so for certain people, certain kids, you're going to want to consider that. Now, just what I tell parents, not to be sexist, but it's a little easier for parents to send their 14-year-old or 15-year-old kid, their son, to a community college. A lot of parents have paused sending their 14 or 15-year-old daughter to a community college because I'll give you a little hint: the community college girls generally don't pay much attention to the 14-year-old kid. The community college guys with the young girls, well, they tend to attract too much attention. So that is some of the things you have to work with the school on to work to figure out. But generally, what I would recommend in those is go and take a class where it's like 3 hours once a week, and then parents can just drop them off and pick them up. But yeah, I'd say start off at 6 credits. But that's another way that it works, and it allows the dyslexics to do 12 credits when they're in college. And then we do so much better at 12 than at 8, 15 or 18 or 21 because we have to work a lot harder.
Yeah. So it's a method really to reduce the stress because stress blocks everything. It blocks neural pathways. When you're pumping adrenaline from stress or anxiety, you're not thinking clearly. The prefrontal lobe doesn't get enough blood. You're
Mhm.
just in the fight or flight, and that kind of incapacitates people. It freezes them. It locks off all their talent, ability. They can't think properly. What you're doing is creating a system where they can learn and improve the brain without all the stress involved. Because remember, when we have a lot of stress, we lose excessive magnesium. You start to impact the physical health of the body with continued chronic stress like that. So if we can teach children how to manage themselves, their learning capacity, their lives, have a feeling of success and competency, they grow up to be adults with competency. They can learn to manage their body, their stress, their mind. Everything becomes more doable and they don't become a prisoner. On the converse side, if we miss that, we have intelligent children becoming intelligent adults that are then in a trap. They're in a prison of labels, wrong labels. And then that introduces more stress to the system and they can become physically ill from that or turn to addictions or other kinds of symptoms and issues which degrade the quality of our life. So, a lot matters to how we teach our children in the right way to avoid those unnecessary stresses.
Yes,
I love
and
that.
that is, and again, when you're talking about the kids, boys are different than girls, typically. Not all. I'm just giving you the general ballpark. What happens? You take a little boy in elementary school and you force them to do something they can't do. You get full out temper tantrums. The girls, they tend to just take it and be quiet. Okay, so you really got to keep track of this because really you want to get this solved like when they're 5. All right. That's what the research shows. You can identify it when they're 5. How do you do it?
Early
Just,
intervention. Yeah.
well, you just contact Yale Dyslexia. Google it. How do I test for dyslexia when they're in kindergarten? It's like $50.
Yeah.
And the teacher can do it. Now you figured that out. Well, how do I fix it? Well, they got literally programs that are $1 million each from the federal government, proven to work. Pick what you want. You want to get them to read by the end of 3rd grade. And just in the States, if you do you K through 3, you learn to read. 4th and above, you read to learn. If you can't, if it's not fixed by the end of 3rd grade, you're in one of those $75,000 private schools for 4 to 5 years. Or I can work with parents to show them how to fix it. And parents are like, well, why don't the schools do this? I said, well, it's like asking them to change everything about how they teach.
Yeah, it's
They don't want to do it.
hard to change the status quo. Well, we've always done it this way, but we've got to push from a grassroots level at a parental level, and eventually that big machine, that big ship turns itself around. It just takes time and a lot of effort. And y- you've got to you've got to put the effort in to get the results and the rewards, right?
Yeah, and parents ask me, does this work for gen ed kids? One I like to use an example. His name is Grayson. You're going to have to guess how old he is. He's on the young side. Grayson has the 99th percentile for math, 99th percentile for science. He wants to get his PhD to work at NASA to terraform Mars. So I have to show him how to come up with a problem statement that's good enough to turn into a journal article. Then we'll ship him off to a senior professor. He's currently reading at the 12th grade level, his contents at the 3rd grade, the 3rd year college level. How old do you think Grayson is?
I don't know.
He's 10.
10. Oh,
Yes. I'm literally taking PhD level articles and I'm terraforming Mars. All right. And I'm turning him into exactly where he is. His dad's doing the teaching. I show his dad what to do once every week or two. All right. So, and what I'm finding with other kids that are super gen ed kids is they freaking love this. I'm dealing with another one. He wants to know how how earthquakes start tsunamis. So I create him an exact document of what he's interested. His teacher, his mom's a former principal and former teacher, so she knows all this stuff. At school, he's so advanced, the teachers just dismiss him, put him on the computers. They don't know what to do with him. He's so far ahead. So he's going over this, and he freaking loves it. He won't put it down. All right, this works really well with gen ed kids as well. It shocked me how much, but I can tell you with the ADHD kids, I have one uh, he wants to be going. He wants to go into sports management. Okay, and I gave him over 30 customized documents that are over 20 pages each. His father signed him up for this big corporate training thing on how to succeed out in the real world. He does none of the work. Nothing. I give him a mountain of work, and he just dives in, and he
but
does it again and again.
it makes you
That's the
think,
difference.
where is the boundary line? I mean, how far can we go to optimize and maximize the full potential of these kinds of brains? It's the sky's the limit, maybe. They
Oh no,
might surpass
it's
AI eventually.
no. Here's how everybody. Just so people know my background, I've been on dozens of podcasts as the AI expert. The moment ChatGPT came out with its $200 a month pro plan in December 24, I bought it that day. So what you need to know about AI is you have to know what good looks like in whatever you do, and when it's not good, how to fix it. Then how to teach that to AI, that's nothing. If you can't do that, you can't use AI. The other thing that you eventually have to do is to make connections. Like, how do I connect this with this? and then you can show AI to do all the crazy connection work. Okay, it gets you to a really good draft, and you have to clean that up. That's what AI is
Yeah.
basically.
You give it a task. It's like an assistant. And
Right, but
then
you
it
have to
does.
know what good looks like in your bones and how to fix it. So when I'm dealing with dyslexics, they've been in this speciality for like forever. Okay. And then they know what good looks like. And when it's not good, it knows how to tell AI how to fix it.
I hope you liked this conversation and will share it with others. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you want to listen to other Body Charge conversations, click like, subscribe, the bell icon, and click all notifications. Subscribe to our newsletter to get updates on blogs, podcasts, videos, and Magnesium special offers at electromagnesium.com.au. Relax, recharge, and recover.